Welcome back. I'm speaking with Russel Norman, co-leader of the Green Party. Dr Norman, can the Green Party, do you think, become a major mainstream party?
Well, I think we've made good progress. So we got 11% at the last election, which was great, and thanks to everyone who voted for us. I think that we can increase that over time, but we're not of the view that we should be making radical leaps. It's a matter of growing support and showing people that they can trust us with their votes. So I think we can, but we're approaching it in a sensible way.
Can you become the largest centre-left party, do you think?
I think that it could well happen, but it will take time. I mean, if you think about the big issues, obviously, that the planet's facing, a lot of them are around sustainability, and inequality has also become very central to the debate, and the Green Party has led on both of those issues. So I think that's part of why we've increased our support.
Your announcement on monetary policy, it started some level of debate about whether or not you were trying to rebrand the Greens a little bit and take the party away to a certain degree from its early roots of being sort of an environmentalist party, if you like. Is there any truth to that?
No. I mean, if you think about what Rod Donald used to do, Rod talked a lot about the tradable sector and making sure that we didn't have big imbalances in the economy, and this was simply extending that debate. I mean, the debate around challenging neoliberal monetary policy, if you could frame what the Reserve Bank Governor spoke about yesterday, challenging neoliberal economic and monetary policy has been central to the Greens all along. Doesn't mean that we've moved away from a focus on environmental or social issues.
What chance do you think of Labor being in a position in 2014 to form a coalition government?
I think it's, it's a pretty good chance when you look at the record of this government. I mean, obviously, governments lose elections as well as oppositions winning them. And, we've had a dramatic growth in unemployment under this government. I think it's another 67,000 people are unemployed so far. We've had very significant problems with the current account deficit. I think that when people start to think to themselves at the next election, am I better off as a result of 6 years of National, I think people will be looking for alternatives, and our job is to present those alternatives.
So will National lose the election, do you think, or will Labor win it?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, but I also think the Greens are a key part of winning the election as well. I mean, when you think about, like the last survey that looked at inequality, 7 out of 10 households had less income over the last 12 months. 3 out of 10 households had more income. Those were the top 3 deciles. So there's this growing inequality, and the middle class is just being ground down to the ground, into the ground. And I think people are really starting to feel that.
What relationship or agreement then would the Greens like if Labor's in a position to form a government next year in 2014?
Well, I mean, the key thing for us is policy. So we're in this business because we want to do good. So that means we need to make sure that we get good policy gains in any kind of agreement, both around inequality, environmental issues and economic issues, taking advantage of the green economic opportunities. So, yeah, the key of it is about policy.
Do you want to be part of a formal coalition, or would you be more of in a support role, do you think?
I think, we'd have to we'd decide in the negotiations, but we're very much open to a formal coalition. We feel like we've been in this business a while. We know what we're doing, and I think people have seen that we know our business. And I think the Greens are ready to take on that kind of formal ministerial role.
OK, let me read you a couple of quotes. The first one is, we have a social contract in New Zealand. It works like this. If you need help because of something unexpected, an accident, a loss, or if misfortune befalls you, you will be supported. But once you're back on your own feet, we expect you to pull your weight and contribute back to society. You agree with that quote?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a savage quote to me, but something like that, yeah. OK,
I'll read you a second quote now. Neoliberalism is based on the idea that it's a dog-eat-dog world. Neoliberalism is based on the idea that greed is good, that we're all locked in an economic life and death struggle with each other. Neoliberalism says that compassion is for suckers. Neoliberalism says that if the world is going to the dogs, it might as well be the top dog. What do you make of that quote?
It sounds like a Cunliffe quote, doesn't it?
It is.
So the question, I guess, is are these quotes incompatible, and how do we feel about them, right? Something
Pretty
like
much.
that. Yeah.
The first one is from David Shearer, the second is David Cunliffe.
So if you like, the first quote, it says that, you know, our job, and as a collective, as a whole society, is we want to look after, support people, so that when they need help, that we're there. And if that's basically what he's saying, then I think we all agree with that, including the Greens. And that's the foundation of the welfare state, if you like. And so we support that. Now, the question is that was David Shearer in that speech kind of subtly somehow beneficiary bashing? And I think he was accused of that if it's the same speech. And obviously we don't agree with that kind of beneficiary bashing. And I'm not saying that's what he was doing, but we would certainly draw a line there.
Okay.
But in terms of critique of neoliberalism, I mean, I agree with David Cunliffe. It has been very damaging for New Zealand.
So would David Cunliffe be a better fit for the Greens than David Shearer?
Well, you know, who's leader of the Labor Party is up to the Labor Party.
Sure.
So it's not my job. We can work with either of them. David Shearer's the leader. We're working with him well.
But it's not, you know, you do need to have an opinion on this if you want to form a formal coalition. And certainly Cunliffe, I would think, would be closer positioned to the Greens' positioning.
I don't think we do need to have a position on it. I mean, our job is to work with other political parties where there's common policy, and as long as that common policy exists, then that's where we start from. I mean, and you know, when you look at the performance of David Shearer or David Cunliffe, I mean, it's heaps better than, say, Bill English or Hekia Parata, or, you know, when you think about the disaster in education, you know, I'd much rather that we were working with those people.
OK, you said that you're open to potentially, you know, helping to form a coalition. Presumably you'd want a ministerial position in that coalition. What do you think you'd be best suited to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Green team would want ministerial positions. So, you know, we come as a package. So we've got co-leaders and we've got some really talented MPs. So we'd be looking at some of those key portfolios, both economics and finance portfolios, but other social and environmental portfolios as well. OK,
so what would sit well with you? Minister of Finance?
Well, when, you know, obviously that needs to be sorted in a post-election negotiation. Obviously, we are interested in positions like that, but in terms of the detail, you couldn't really sort it out until you know what the votes were. It's up to the voters to decide how much influence the Green Party has.
Would you rule it out?
I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it in. You know, at the end of the day, we'll go to the election. The voters will determine the level of influence we have, and that will determine the outcome.
Which other MPs do you think within the Green Party would be worthy of ministerial positions?
A number of them, but it's probably a little early to start picking names.
OK, there's also an issue of potential coalition partners. Where do you sit on the issue of New Zealand First? Is that a party the Greens could work with?
If it's based on policy. I mean, so our whole approach to working with other parties is where there's common ground. So we've worked with National where we've found common ground. The home insulation scheme, I think, was an excellent program. But in terms of working with New Zealand First, again, it would be based on common policy.
So for you, the positioning is it's policy-based, not personality-based?
Fundamentally, yeah. I mean, that's what voters expect us. They want us to behave in, you know, responsible people who try to do the best for New Zealand.
So you could work with Winston Peters?
Yeah. Well, we've on the manufacturing inquiry, which we set up because 40,000 jobs have been lost from manufacturing over the last 4 years, even though the government says there isn't a problem, there is a problem. And we're working with Labor and New Zealand First on that inquiry.
All right, Dr. Russel Norman, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for coming in.